everybody. Welcome to another Webinar Wednesday. My name is Kara Godleski, and I am the Marketing and Membership Engagement Coordinator here at Nonprofit Hub. I'm really excited for this session with Julia and Catalina because they are the experts on consulting. And we're going to dive into a really great session and answer y'all's questions on should you start consulting for nonprofits. So as we get a minute to settle in, I would love to hear where y'all are from. I'm from Huntsville, Alabama, also known as the Rocket City and 2 hours south of Nashville. And I would love to hear where y'all are coming in from today. And also, I would love to know if y'all have worked with a nonprofit consulting beforehand. Feel free to share your experience in the chat and share where y'all are from. So yeah, we got some people tuning in. We got Cynthia from Hawaii. Welcome. We got Carla from Iowa, Jamie from Washington, Lisa from Vancouver. So wow, we got some people from a little everywhere today.
I see Columbia, South Carolina. I live in Charleston now in Mount Pleasant. And Julia's in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. I see St. Augustine, Florida. Cool.
Yep. Yeah, so y'all are gotten some good springtime weather then, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's super nice here. It's 80 and sunny.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I would love that right now. It's been a rainy, thunderstormy day. So I would love some nice sunshine right now.
Yep.
Oh, awesome. And I see Effie, they said there, I'm just starting a nonprofit consulting business. Okay, great.
Cool.
Congratulations. And Rachel says, have worked with consultants before. So awesome. Okay, so have consulted before, like learning new strategies. Okay, so we kind of have a nice little range of a mix of everyone. Also, before we get started, just a few housekeeping items. This session is going to be recorded, so you will get an email afterward with any resources we mentioned today and the recording in the slide deck. And I also want to say a very big thank you to our sponsor, Relatable Nonprofit. Tools to serve nonprofit people who share our belief in lifelong learning, vision, execution, and wellness. So thank you very much. And I also want to give a quick shout out to also our official platform partners, FireSpring. So without further ado, I would love to pass it over to the experts, Julia and Catalina, and they can share a little bit about themselves and they're going to share a really great story about helping you understand whether you're ready for consulting for nonprofits. So I will pass it off to them.
Thank you so much, Kara. All right, cool. We got our slides pulled up. Thank you everyone so much for being here. We are so excited. This is a new topic for us to present on, but it's something that we have been spending a lot of time on since we started our consulting agency about 2 years ago. And we just learned from Kara that there were a ton of questions submitted by more than 400 people who had signed up. So we have a ton of cool questions that were just submitted to us. So I just wanted to say that anything that we don't cover in today's presentation, if you guys opt in to receive updates from us after the presentation and you want to reach out to our support email, we'd love to answer you one-on-one, anything that we don't cover today. So just wanted to shout that out, make sure you know that. So we're super excited today to talk to you about starting your consulting journey. This is a little bit of a different presentation. It's the first time that we are going to go out and share our personal story. We thought that might be a nice way for a lot of you who are out there who are working in nonprofits or working in the sector and you're thinking about, is this right for me? Am I ready to take the leap? So we wanted to tell you about what we went through, how we went from full-time development director and program officer to foundation to running this agency full-time and working pretty much on a part-time schedule. So if that's interesting to you, this is our agenda. We'll talk about why consulting, some reasons why it might be a good fit for you at this point in your career, talk to you about our story, our consulting business, and then we will talk to you about a special program that we are rolling out this year for other consultants or newbies to the industry who want to try their hand in consulting. So stick around at the end for that opportunity. And I did just want to highlight these stats that Catalina just pulled just a few days ago for an editorial that we were writing. And it just goes along with a lot of what we're hearing from people in our networks. We have an Instagram account called Relatable Nonprofit, which some of you might follow. And we talk all day long with people in the industry, and we're hearing a lot of the same things. And these stats that when we saw them, we were just blown away, but not altogether surprised that 74% of nonprofit employees are considering a new job this year, and 65% are unsure if they will remain in the sector at all. So going along with that, we have 58% of employees are leaving because of too much responsibility and not enough support. And 57% are also talking about inadequate benefits and compensation being a problem for them in their current role. So if any of you are feeling that, these numbers are pretty high, but we wanted to talk about consulting because we think it is a great option for people who are in the sector but are tired of the full-time work to still stay in nonprofits and make a difference with their skill set. So just highlighting those numbers for you that you're probably in the right place if you feel like that. So 5 signs that nonprofit consulting might be for you. Here are the top things that we're hearing across the board from people in our network right now. So number 1 is you got into nonprofit work because you care about doing social good, but you no longer enjoy what you do. Could be that you fell into nonprofit work like we did, or you got into it from the program work side of things, and maybe you made it over to fundraising or marketing or one of those skill sets. And as much as you love the mission, you're just really not feeling it anymore, driving into the office or logging on each morning and having to do the same thing day in, day out. Maybe you have more responsibilities than you did, but not more pay to go with it. And you're just seeing kind of a dead end in front of you. You're no longer enjoying it and you're not feeling happy. You saw from those stats, that's really high right now among a lot of people. Number 2, you're feeling underappreciated, overworked, and you don't see a clear path for growth in your current role. There was an editorial 2 days ago in Chronicle of Philanthropy that talked about consulting for nonprofits and how I thought this was actually really cool. A nonprofit consultant shared her story, and she said that when she was working in-house, a lot of people would question her decisions. They would ask her, are you sure about that? I don't know. And they wouldn't follow her advice. She left, became a consultant, and came back just the same organization she was working with as a consultant. And she felt that she was much more respected, taken a lot more seriously by the board, and looked at as an expert from the outside rather than an employee who was inside, who wasn't trusted and wasn't given as much decision-making power. So that's just one reason why consulting, and we found the same thing in our experience, you get taken more seriously, you're treated like an expert, and they're more likely to pay you what you're worth. 3, you are frustrated with the toxic work culture and leadership of your organization. So it's been pretty tough since COVID. I know even before then it was kind of tough, but a lot of toxic work cultures have sprung up because of being understaffed, because of not being able to meet revenue budgets each year. Not knocking the nonprofits. We know they're trying the best that they can and they're working really hard, but it is becoming increasingly difficult to retain talent at nonprofits because of the situation. So what we're finding is that people who are transitioning into consulting work are able to still work with these organizations, but offering to them the value that they can afford rather than being taken advantage of and being a part of an internal culture that just is not great for your work-life balance. 4, you're craving more flexibility. This is another post-COVID change that a lot of us have experienced. You got used to spending more time with your friends and family, and you also want to pursue personal development and growth. You don't want to be glued to your desk 9 to 5 or longer every single day for years on end. That's how we felt definitely at our jobs. I mean, we must have been working some days 8, 10.
Yeah, 80 hour weeks.
Never getting to see our families. We'll talk about that a little bit. And it just doesn't have to be that way anymore. There are so many options. There are remote options. There are flexible work schedules. And consulting has just been an amazing way for us to be able to pick and choose the projects and the clients that we want to work with and work on, and still protect our time and invest in our personal time, our growth, and our health, and our families. So if that sounds like you, Make a note. That's a lot of us. And 5, you have valuable skills and you want to be paid what you're worth. It's really tough when you've been at a nonprofit, whether you've been there for a year or you've been there 5 or 10 or more. You have probably learned a ton. You probably know a lot about the fundraising, a lot about the operations, the marketing, how to manage the volunteer programs, and your salary increases have not reflected that knowledge and that growth. And that can leave you feeling like maybe you don't have these valuable skills, but we're challenging you with this presentation to think about, it's really hard. You think, oh, whatever, anyone knows how to do that, manage a volunteer program, but they don't. And once you start convincing yourself and breaking out of this mindset limitation that the things that you know in your role could actually be really powerful and very helpful to other organizations who would be willing to pay a very deserving rate for what you do, you can actually realize that you can make a big difference with more organizations than the one that you work for, and you can get paid what you're worth. So we wanted to share that one and remind you that you probably have major skills that you just don't realize are valuable. Okay, so now we're going to get into the personal stories. So that's me. It's a really bad picture of me, but I'm sharing it because that was like a low point for me in my career. I got into the nonprofit sector right after college. I fell into it through a development internship role. Catalina was my boss. Actually, she was my first boss right out of college. And I started learning grant writing. I became a full-time grant writer when I graduated. And due to high turnover, due to lack of proper management at the organization, and also some of my own hard work and persistence, I was promoted 4 times in 4 years. So I graduated when I was 21. By the time I was 24 years old, I was managing a team of 10 people, and I was responsible for an annual operating budget of more than $7 million. I was working sometimes 12-hour days, neglecting my mental and physical health and my personal relationships. And between February and March of 2020, I was actually in and out of the hospital for symptoms related to stress. So at 24 years old, I was getting an endoscopy and being checked for ulcers because of stress. And how did I get there? I mean, I cared about the mission. I was excited about what I was doing. I was happy to be doing this great nonprofit work. But it was a problem because the nonprofit just didn't have people who were at the right levels to be managers. People were leaving. There was turnover every 18 months. And whenever a position would open up and I was this 22-year-old kid, I'm like, hey, I'll take that job. I'll step up. I'll do more because you want to prove yourself, especially when you're right out of school. And what would happen is the nonprofit would turn around and say, sure, if you want to do that, that's great. Take on more. And I know from talking to a lot of people in our network now that the same thing has happened to them. And I bet a ton of you have had that experience where you almost naively walk yourself into a situation where, oh, I'll manage the digital department. Sure, I know how to post on social media. And all of a sudden, you've got all these people reporting to you. I had people who were 40, 50, and 60 years old reporting to me. And it was really a ridiculous and inappropriate situation. I didn't know how to handle it. I was in over my head. And it just was not going well for me. So through the pandemic, into 2021, that was pretty much a terrible situation for me. So you can go to the next slide. I quit. In the end of 2020 or end of 2021, I decided that after being home, I'd gone back up to New Jersey to be with my family. During the pandemic, while we were working from home, I quit, and I got to spend a lot more time with my grandparents, my parents, my siblings, my husband, who was my boyfriend at the time, and repairing those relationships, spending more time outside, working on my health, walking every day. And I just realized that this was not going to work for me, no matter how good the money was. So you can see here, this was actually a text that I sent to my best friend when I walked out of the office for the last time. And I was leaving a 100K salary job. So I understand, people say you can't make good money in nonprofits. You definitely can. I was, and it still was not enough to keep me there because I just knew that I needed to continue prioritizing my health and if I needed to find a better way to work in the nonprofit industry. So that was me. I left, not really knowing what my next move was going to be. I moved back home with my parents, applied for graduate school, and just started that and was like, well, I'll see what I do next. And then little did I know that my friend Catalina, who I hadn't talked to in about a year, was going through a very similar situation.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it was just crazy. We were going through these major life changes at the same time, but didn't know it at all. So I got my first nonprofit job straight out of college. I was like an office assistant. And I guess that was 2014 when I got that job. And after a year of taking on extra work, like Julia was saying, I mean, you want to prove yourself when you're fresh out of school and young and hungry. I asked my boss during my annual review what growth opportunities there were in the org. And he basically told me that there weren't any because I was working with all these lawyers in DC. It was an advocacy org, and I was the only non-attorney on staff. So unless I wanted to go to law school, which I did look into the LSAT for like 48 hours, I think, bought a book and decided it was not for me. So I started looking for a job shortly after that. And I got my next job as a social media coordinator at another nonprofit in DC. And I made sure to ask her in the interview process that wanted to make sure there was room for growth. And there was, luckily. So within 3 years, I was promoted twice. And during that time, I was recruited by a $500 million private foundation. That was 2017. So this was basically the dream, like going from asking for money every day of my life to giving away millions of dollars to awesome nonprofits. I mean, it was just insane. And what made the job even more unreal was that the salary was crazy. The benefits were amazing. I mean, they paid for me to go to Columbia to get my master's degree in nonprofit management. The job would set me up for life, no joke. So I thought it was a dream, but actually it wasn't, because I realized that after nearly 5 years in this job, my dream job, I was miserable. There was this nagging little voice in my head saying, Kat, wake up, something's wrong, something's not right. And I realized that while I was living this fairy tale life on the outside, inside, I mean, I was just a disaster. I became a distant partner to my husband. I missed out on a lot of the precious moments from my daughter's first year of her life just because I was always working. I moved to a city that didn't feel like home for that job, just to follow a job. And I was actually having daily panic attacks at work. I would literally shut my office door, my beautiful big office with a big window that I loved, and I would just hyperventilate in there and just cry. It was not good. So that's when I realized that was my wake-up call and I needed to change my life. So in December 2021, we sold our house. That's the house in the picture. I loved that house. That's me and my husband and my daughter. Now I have another little one. But we sold the house, put all of our belongings into 2 storage pods, and we booked a trip to Hawaii just because we wanted to go there. And I didn't know what the heck to do because we were just so unhappy. So during that time, I actually texted Julia, and I told her, I'm quitting my job. What are you thinking about? I mean, do you want to start a business with me? What are you up to? And we had not talked in forever.
Yep. So I got that text and I had nothing going on. I was just doing grad school. So I said, sure, why not? So we knew we had one person that we had worked with back in DC who was looking for someone to help them get a fundraising program up and running. And we said, all right, let's just take it on. It may not be that much money, but let's just say yes and see what happens. So, oh, sorry, I moved ahead. Sorry, you go ahead. So that's where we started. In January 2022, we launched Divine and Parker Consulting to offer fundraising, marketing, and operations support for nonprofit organizations. And I know some of you have been asking, and some of you asked in the chat prior to this, what kind of services to offer and what kind of pricing. And we knew none of this in the beginning. We get into this in a lot of resources that we have on our website that we can share with you after this training. But basically, we just said, all right, we'll do fundraising. We'll start with that. That's what we know. And we started making the mistake early on, which I will tell you is a mistake, to offer too many things. And you do have to niche down eventually and offer what you're good at. But you can see here, I'll show you that from the 1st February 2022, our first client, we started making just under $5,000 a month with them. And as we worked our network and we met people online, we messaged in forums. There was something called The Pond at the time, which was a cool place to get clients. But by building up an organic network of people plus referrals, we eventually moved up in monthly revenue to our first month of 20K revenue, which was December 2022. So within that first year, we made it to $20,000 in revenue. And that was with Catalina still working full time at her job. She hadn't yet taken the leap. And you can see that from there, it's been consistently higher. And these numbers go to the end of last year. So in that time, we decided that we would both go full time. And that's what we've been doing ever since.
Mm-hmm.
In the meantime, we did want to share, for those of you who are wondering what our lives look like now, when you build a business where you take back your time, your energy, and start living life on your own terms, you can do what you want and you structure your work to support that. So after the pandemic cleared up, I had just gotten married in my backyard. We decided, my husband and I, to go to Italy, and that's where we spent the 3 months over the summer, and I worked on all my client work from there. So you can see a picture there on the left. That's me in Ischia, and that's myself and my husband in Florence. We lived there for 3 months, and then we just moved down here to Fort Lauderdale for my husband's new job. So I was able to wake up in the morning, get a croissant, go to some museums, walk around things in Rome, come back at 2 p.m., get on a consulting call and do a training from my Airbnb there. And we just want to share that because that's like the private side. What was that, Catalina?
That was the month we made the most money, actually.
And that was our first 20K month.
Yeah.
So we want to share that just because you see these consulting agencies all around, but these are just 2 girls who did not know what they were doing 6 months ago. And we were able to go and do these things. In the same time, Catalina was able to move to Charleston, get out of Pittsburgh and the rainy weather. And that's when you got pregnant with your second baby. And you can talk a little bit more about that.
Yep. Yeah, no, I mean, I take daily walks on the beach now. I live 10 minutes from the beach, and I go every morning to walk my dog there. My daughter goes to like a half day preschool. And then after 1 o'clock, I pick her up and I spend the rest of the day with her and my son. We have some help. We have a nanny that comes in the mornings to watch my son so I can do some work. But we basically work like probably 30 hours a week, right?
Yeah, I think we have a slide on that actually.
Yeah, so if you're still contemplating like if this is the right fit for you, like let this at least give you the courage, because we totally thought it was not possible.
Yep. So here we both basically work about 25 hours a week, and about half of that is client work. And half of that is business development. We meet Monday, Wednesdays, Friday mornings, and we talk about what's going on with our clients, what we're working on each week with them, what our goals are, and then how we are developing our relationships, doing our marketing and sales and things like that. The average, just based on those numbers we shared, is 16K a month in revenue. Obviously, that can vary. We've had 20K plus months, and we've had lower months depending on the projects that we're running. One of the most important things I will share was the transition we made from hours-based pricing to project-based pricing, and above all, value-based pricing. So not just saying, I will do this for $85 an hour, which we did with our second client. And it got us into a situation where we were basically running the development department of a small nonprofit for $85 an hour. And it was just very untenable. So we realized that you do have to raise your rates. The right nonprofits will respect that if you are offering them the value upfront that they are getting from their services. So now on average, our rate is $150 an hour, but we have done projects where that rate was more like $300 and more, depending on the kind of project that we're offering. So, and we've been in business for 2 years. So we have a lot of new projects that we're rolling out, and we anticipate our 6-figure revenue to continue to grow as we get smarter and about working rather than just working most hours. And if anyone's wondering, the reason why hours-based pricing does not work is because we realized that At one point, we had 6 to 8 clients at the same time, and we were trying to split up the work. You run out of hours in the day, and if you're not working, you can't bill. So if your client wants 10 hours a week, you're like, oh my God, I have to hit the 10th hour. Otherwise, I can't bill for it. Rather than just saying, I'm going to deliver you a grant proposal for this amount of money, whether it took me 5 hours to write it because I'm a fast writer, or it took me 25 hours to write it because I really had to go slow on this one. It doesn't matter. You charge for the value. So that is something that I would mention to you all.
Yeah, we had a question in the chat, so that's perfect.
Okay, cool. Awesome. So why it works, and these are the values that we bring to the table and that we bring to our business every day, is having a commitment to learning. So always being willing to learn new tricks, always being able to admit when we are wrong and make a change in our business. So when we decided to make the change from pricing things hourly to values-based, was a huge change. We were doubled our money in like, I don't know, from one project to the next. It was amazing how much more we could charge. And then just pivoting your strategy based on that. So we do have periodic strategy calls rather than just focusing on the client work. We like to sit back and say, okay, what are we doing? What's working? What's not working? Second is vision plus execution. We saw this in nonprofits when we worked there. We see this with nonprofit clients all the time. It's what makes you a valuable consultant, is if you are able to have both a vision and a strategy and a plan for execution. So a lot of people have big dreams. We talk to nonprofits all the time that are like, we want to do this and we want to do that, and we want to set up this massive event. But you need to be able to bring those clients back down to reality and say, okay, this is what I'm hearing. This is what we think you can do. And these are the steps to do that. So that applies both to your clients and also to running your business as well. We talk all the time about how we'd love to host retreats in person and whatever, but we know that, okay, we need to have a budget for that. We need to have a plan for that. And we need to have a timeline. So always thinking vision plus execution when running anything in the business.
And somebody's asking about how to price. How do you determine a value-based price? So for example, a reason why hourly doesn't work is because eventually you will get better. Like if it takes you to, let's say it takes you 5 hours to put together one grant proposal. As you get better, you're going to improve, right? So why would you charge like only an hour to do that same thing that you did 5 hours? Maybe, I don't know, a couple of months ago or something like that. You're continuously improving, right? That's the point. So when you do value-based pricing, you're charging just a flat fee, no matter how long it takes you to get it done. Does that make sense?
And a way to do that we did when we were starting out, because we were like, all right, well, what's a fair number? Is we would take a project. So something we offered right in the beginning was CRM setup for nonprofits that were just getting set up on a new CRM where they were migrating. And we would say, okay, what are the 5 things that we provide? We maybe provide the data hygiene. We do the actual imports for them. We set up their receipting process. We'll set up their some basic reports, and we'll set up one other thing. So these 5 things. And I would estimate, okay, if I want to make $150 an hour on each of those things, and I'm going to say, this takes me 5 hours to do, this takes me 10 hours to do, and so on. And I just went down a spreadsheet and I said, every line item, how many hours and what the rate was for that. And then I put in like a 10% buffer. And that's just, okay, I'm going to estimate that maybe 10 hours are going to be in here for an extra training, or if I'm going to do a write-up of what I set up for them so they have it all in writing. But you want to put a buffer in just in case something goes wrong, which inevitably it will. Something's going to take longer. Their data is going to be messier than they said it was. And once you bake that into the price and it's at your rate, then you have a flat fee for the project. At that point, you can charge 50% up front, 50% on completion, but it's going to depend. And you can also do something similar with retainers, where you say, okay, we'll offer you 10 hours of training, support, and setup per month, but it's use it or lose it. So if you decide not to take me up on my 10 hours, I'm still charging you the full amount. And that has been very successful for us as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then the last value here that I did want to mention, because it's why we left and why we started this business in the first place, and it's also why we continue to be successful in working together, is prioritizing health and family and relationships. That's something my grandmother always said to me: your health comes first, then family, then everything else. And when we worked full-time nonprofit side, that was just very impossible to do. So, so you are able to do that when you are working for yourself, when you're running your own thing. You're still able to provide for your clients, but you also know that you can tell them, hey, I'm not working today. And you have full autonomy to do that if you need a day to be with your kids, be with your family, or just take a day off. So now we want to talk a little bit about the program that we are rolling out. It's brand new. It is just launching in the next few weeks, but we did want to mention it to you all. We are starting to put together everything that we have learned in the last 2 years about consulting into a 12-month training program to teach nonprofit consulting business, teach you how to buy back your time and get paid what you're worth while loving what you do. And this is named after our Relatable Nonprofit Instagram account. So the mentorship experience is going to have trainings and resources. We'll have weekly modules. We'll do an hour training like this where we dig into each of the topics, a lot of the ones that you guys are talking about. And we're going to, talk about pricing structures. We're going to talk about how to make a scope of work, what kind of accounting support you need. We will talk about what types of consulting to do, the most lucrative consulting niches that we have seen, and what we've been paid most for and what we've been paid least for. So we'll dig into that every week. We're also going to have 2 calls a month that are live strategy calls, accountability calls, and there will also be occasional one-on-one calls where we can game out your business. In addition to that, we're really excited about this. There's going to be a 24/7 access to a student network, and that's going to be a community, a forum just for people in the mentorship program where you all can talk and share about what you're working on. And we find that with nonprofit consultants, although you might think, oh, it might be a little competitive, once you guys specialize in something, other consultants in your network are going to become your base for referrals. And we've gotten tons of referrals from other consultants that we know who do different things from us. And even ones that do similar things are open to collaborating, or they might say, hey, I just don't have the bandwidth right now to take on this client. I know you offer the service. Can you take on this client for me? So we're hoping that that network will actually be a place for our students to get access to client opportunities as well. So that's the program. We are offering 2 different payment options, either $3,000 upfront for the year or monthly payments of $250 a month. And that also is going to get you access to all of our templates and resources. And I think we're offering a promotion this week where if you join in the next week, you'll also get access to Donor Flow Academy, which is our nonprofit professional package where we have all of our consulting resources. So all of our annual communications plans, fundraising plans, everything that we use to support our clients, which we package and sell to nonprofits who want like a do-it-yourself consulting experience, that will also be included for this price in the mentorship. Okay, so it sounds expensive. How do I know it's worth it? I like to do some math on this question. If you're making $60,000 in nonprofit salary right now, 2% increase a year, if you're even getting that, you'll be making $66,000 in 5 years. And meanwhile, if you had 3 clients on a $3,000 a month retainer, that's going to be $108,000 a year. And I saw a question earlier about overhead or profit after expenses. Our overhead is we bought ourselves 2 laptops, and so that was $2,000. We pay for Google Suite, which is like $200 a year, and we pay for a website domain. So and we also pay for an accountant, which is like $250 a quarter. So we're talking, I think we each put in $1,500 to start this business. So there is very little overhead. I mean, there's more that we pay for because we choose to, like we did a retreat last month. And certain things we just hired an executive assistant. So overhead will come into play, but our expenses for the year last year had to be under $10,000. And we did 6 figures, and I think it was about 300,000 that we did last year. So the opportunity is there, and it's just not that hard. We were able to get a client in the first month. Okay. What if I don't have the time? So I know people get a little psyched out about joining a program. How do I know I have the time if I have a full-time job, I have a family? How do I make this transition? How do I make time to participate in this program? So we actually have a business coach that's an expenditure that we just added this year, but it's totally worth it. His name's Dan Martell, and he has a book called Buy Back Your Time. And he literally takes you through how to get rid of everything that you're currently doing that you need to delegate. That's why we decided to hire an executive assistant to help us with accounting, invoicing, and managing certain aspects of the client work. So we teach this in the course as well. We'll talk about how you can replace tasks. So you're just focusing on those high value, high dollar tasks that are going to make you the most money. And it really has been a huge game changer for us. And I saw some of you asking this, what if I don't know what services to offer? So we do, when we work through the course material, we're going to touch on early on different specialties that we are seeing asked for again and again, because something you'll learn pretty early on is you're going to take on a client and they're going to hire you for email marketing. And then you're going to work with them for 6 weeks and they're going to say, hey, do you know how to do Instagram? And then you're going to say, sure. And then you're going to do their Instagram. And then they're going to say, hey, do you know how to run a database? And you're going to say, okay. And then all of a sudden you're going to be working full time for this place. See it all the time. So we are going to help you break out different specialties like digital marketing, tech and IT, plan giving, major gifts, all of those things, and help you pick what your specialty is, what you love doing, so that you can create offers and packages that just focus on those things. Because we did make the huge mistake of just listing every single thing that we know how to do on our website. And it was just stupid. It was so stupid. Don't do it. So we'll teach you how to niche down and not make that mistake.
And I just saw Anne signed up. That's awesome, Anne. We're so excited to have you, and it's totally going to change your life. We're going to teach you the mistakes we made so you do not. Promise.
That's awesome. Thank you. Cool. All right. Any other things that we have in here? What's the next slide?
What if I decide I don't want to consult?
Okay, yeah. So that's an interesting question. Catalina, did you want to answer that?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, if you decide at the end of the program, it's not the right thing for you. I saw somebody in here post that maybe you want to go work under a consultant. That's cool. The good news is that you're going to learn a ton of transferable skills. Like if you know how to fundraise, that translates to sales. You can go work in any industry, right? So, if anything, you will learn how to just buy back your time. Time management is huge. That's a big thing we have learned personally. And how to have balance in your life too. I can't tell you, it is something I struggle with as a former workaholic. Julia, she will not respond to my texts on weekends because she tells me I need work-life balance. So we're going to teach you all that stuff that has really changed our lives because we feel so strongly that it will help you too. But anyway, if you decide at the end of the course that it's not for you, at least you have the skills, knowledge, and confidence to set boundaries, protect your health and time, and get paid what you're worth, right?
Oh, sorry, I just went. Yeah. What I'm already consulting. Awesome. That's great. You're ahead of the curve. So even if you've already been going it alone for a little bit, this is something that we wish that we had, and this is why we've been working on developing this for the last few months. We did not know what to do. We made a lot of mistakes. We wasted a lot of time. And if you're already out there right now and you're you got one client, or maybe you have no clients, you're not sure what to offer, you just don't know what to do. We have been so fortunate to have each other, at least, so that we always have someone to talk to. I ignore you on the weekends because I love you and I want you to stop working, but it is really great to just know that there's always someone there on the other end to pick up the phone and be like, am I crazy? Can I just talk this through with you? Can we just game the situation out? And I cannot imagine, actually, I know for a fact that I would not have done this by myself. So if you're out there, you're doing it alone and you just want a community, that's what we're trying to create here. You'll have me, you'll have Catalina, and you'll have the network of people who are joining. to talk to and to say, hey, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? And maybe you'll end up collaborating and working together. We see all the time nonprofit consultants that we know who do collabs, and they say, okay, we're going to offer a joint service. When we had our website rebranded, actually, we went to someone who did website design, and then she contracted in a friend who did graphic design, and she did our logos and everything. And they just offered the package together. So there's so many ways to be creative, even if you're already out there and you're just wishing you had someone to work with. This is going to be the place to do that. And so you're going to learn, you're going to grow together, and you're going to find, I think, really meaningful, valuable collaboration opportunities. And yeah, so we did just want to say this because there are so many things out there on the internet that are like, do this and you'll make $1 billion. This is not a get rich quick scheme. This is a major career change that will impact all other areas of your life. It requires dedication and commitment and a lot of hard work. Be lying if I said that we didn't pull all weekend. Sometimes we wanted to get something done and we really wanted to make sure that we had a client project done on time, or that we had a scope ready to go, a proposal ready to go, or that we wanted to roll out a new service, roll out a new website. You definitely work hard. You need to have time management skills. We are going to teach them to you. But you don't just show up and get handed free money. That definitely doesn't work. So we just want you guys to know that. But if you are willing to apply your learnings and the trainings, to show up to the live sessions, prepare with questions, proactively engage in the community, you will be successful in this program. We know so many people who started out the same time as us who are very successful now. And all the stats and all of the industry trends that we're looking at are pointing to this being a huge year for people who want to go out on their own. And it's just a great opportunity. So, but we do offer a guarantee. If you are not seeing results and you're doing everything that the program requires, we will personally work with you until you do. Okay, so the transformational learning outcomes, what you'll learn in this course: business building fundamentals, landing the right nonprofit clients, project and time management skills. Catalina mentioned she has a master's in nonprofit management from Columbia. I also have a master's certificate in project management from GW. So we have studied this. We've been implementing a lot of this in our business. And we'll also talk about mindset and growth, and just how to scale your business and how to overcome limiting beliefs that you have about just being in business for yourself at all. Okay, so that's the presentation. Get started today if you're interested in signing up. I think Catalina has shared the link. If you have any questions for us, you can email us at support@divineparker.com. Catalina, if you want to drop that email in there. And if you guys opt in to receive updates, or maybe you already did, you guys will add it to our list and we can send you more information about the program.
Yeah. So do you want to go through and answer some of the questions people?
Sorry, that was my
No worries. Yeah, so we did have some really great questions. I think people are really starting to think about this. Let's answer. We have Cynthia's. How would you respond to someone who asks for client testimonials when you're just starting?
That's interesting. We had a situation where when we were signing our second and third client, I think we had just started working with the second one a few weeks before. And then the third one asked and reached out, and we just went right to the second client. We're like, hey, would you mind giving a testimonial about how it's been going so far? And they were very gracious and they said, okay. I would say 2 options that you could do. If you have a good relationship with your previous employer, I would go to them and ask for a testimonial to how you worked when you were in-house. And another thing that you could do is share a sort of portfolio of your work. So maybe share a template or share a case study of something that you have done, a one-pager that would just outline your thought process, outline the kind of work that you could do, or just offer a sample. We offer a lot of like freebies on our website, and we use those to showcase our work. And that works really well with people, just to kind of give them a taste of the kinds of things that you can do.
That's awesome. That's a good way to navigate that. Let's see. Let's look at. I'm trying to see.
Answer that one. Value-based pricing.
Naomi's asking. I'm sorry, Naomi just said the chat's not working. Naomi, it's support@divineparker.com is the email.
So we kind of had a good question from Douglas. When you're cold calling new clients, how do you convince them they need you without sounding like they don't know what they're doing?
Yeah. So we've done a lot of that. So something we learned really recently, actually, which has been a game changer, is the informational interview session. And so what we'll do when we are starting to roll out a new service is that we will put out on our Instagram or our LinkedIn or to our email list, or even just messaging people and just saying, hey, we're looking to get feedback from people in our community about a certain thing that we're working on, about CRM use in their community or grant writing or whatever your service is going to be about. Would you be willing to do a 15-minute informational session with us and give us your feedback? And then you ask them not leading questions, but probing questions about what they're doing. And then at that point, once they've talked to you and they're understanding from your questions that you know what you're talking about, then you say, okay, great. Maybe you'd be interested, if it's grant writing and they're like, yeah, we want to raise $100,000 in grants this year. Okay, well, have you researched any foundations yet? No. Do you know where to start looking? Not really. Okay, well, have you thought about this? And you start to give them advice by asking those questions. So informational interviews, we will be covering those heavily in the program, have been a game changer, because by the end of the conversation, people are like, well, you seem to know a whole lot about this. Let's sign up with you.
Awesome.
We have, go ahead, Kara.
So we have another one. Have you tailored your business to only certain types of nonprofits? And I think there might have been even a couple questions about kind of this in the chat or beforehand about like, how do you build your client base? Like, how do you tailor that? How do you navigate that?
Yeah. So again, this was something we wish we had learned sooner. At first we were like, yeah, just anyone who will work with us will work with, but it really depends on what you're kind of trying to offer. And if you want to be charging those rates, you need to be working with nonprofits that have the budget. So we started setting up certain criteria that we would use. And I forget exactly what they were, Catalina, but it was like mid-level. I think it was like $5 million budget. Like if they have below a $3 million budget, it just probably wasn't going to be a good fit for us. It can be a good fit if what you're offering is a low ticket item. Like if you're offering low dollar trainings or you're selling toolkits or resources for $47, $27, you can build a business that way too. So I'm not saying that you can't, because we actually have an arm of our business now that does that with our Instagram, where we're selling low ticket toolkits. But if you're going to be offering one-on-one consulting support, you want to look at their ability. So you look at their $990 and you see what their operating budget is. We also, we would just, I guess we didn't really parse it down by issue type, but we, there's certain, we haven't looked at higher ed organizations, but public policy organizations, anyone that did issue advocacy, things that we were comfortable working with. We did set that criteria as well. And the more you can niche it down, like if you're like, I work with startup environmental nonprofit organizations, that is a very specific thing that you can tell people. And if that's your bread and butter, people are going to say, oh yeah, he's the startup environmental nonprofit guy.
Yeah.
And I have like my boss used to say a Rolodex. I don't know what that is, but in my head, I have a Rolodex of names of people who I'm like, oh, that's the startup website guy. Oh, that's the lady who does giving. And we refer people all the time. So the more niche you are, I think that's going to help you build a client base of people that reflect that. You're going to attract those people.
Yeah. Jackie asked kind of like that, like in the course, or you will help discover that area for them too.
Yep. Yeah. So we're going to do, what I'm planning to do in the course is do like a couple of trainings where we highlight, if it's going to be digital marketing or planned giving or different tech, like things that we are seeing. And we have a pretty large audience on Instagram, so we poll them a lot.
Mhm.
And so that's something that you'll be getting access to as well, is like, we will poll them and we will say, what are the services you guys are looking for the most right now? And see what they say. And we're like, a lot of people really want board management. Like a lot of people all the time, it's board management. So that's something that we might talk about. Now, we haven't necessarily done board management ourselves, but that's the kind of thing we'll put together a presentation. And what we also are going to be doing for people who sign up this week, we are going to be bringing in our friends who are experts who already do this stuff in their business and have them come in and do a presentation. So we'll pull a friend who exclusively does board management and have them come in and do a workshop with our students.
Mm-hmm. We have, Michelle's asking, is there a curriculum? I'm going to drop in here. We have a page on our site that goes through the curriculum. There you go.
An overview, but obviously this is still a new program. We're just rolling it out. It's going to be for 1 year. So we are relying on a lot on the feedback that we're going to be getting from our first cohort of students. If you guys have a topic, you can certainly request that and we will fold it into the program.
Yeah, and just looking at the chat and some of the questions that were submitted ahead of time, could you all maybe dive in a little bit more into like your pricing or how you would kind of like look into that at all? There was one person who asked about like the project charge, hourly rates, pricing. Is there any way like kind of touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, so I think we did talk about this a little bit earlier, but just going through the process of, if you come up with a package that you want to offer, going line by line on the tasks and estimating the amount of time, and just having literally columns like, okay, task number 1 will take me 5 hours at this rate, this total. Then you go to the next line and you break it out by every task that you are going to do in that project. So it's 5 hours for this task, 10 hours for this task, and you total it at the bottom. And you don't have to put that number, that if it's going to take you 50 hours to complete the project, you don't have to put that number in the proposal, but you just put the line item. It's going to be $5,000. I'd say you always put minimum 10% buffer in there, just to give yourself a little room in case the pricing, in case the project doesn't go as planned and you need extra time.
Mm-hmm.
And then as far as setting your hourly rate, that goes back to the question of overhead, but also just how much you want to make. When we started our business, I took $1 million, then I divided it out by how much you need to make a month to get to $1 million. And it's like, I don't know, 80.
Work backwards.
And you just work backwards from that. So obviously we're not there yet, but we're closer than we were 2 years ago. We get closer every year. So if you take that and you divide it out by then that number of hours that you'd like to work, if there's a monthly number you have to hit, number of hours you want to work, then you try to figure out, okay, approximately how much do we want to be charging an hour? If it's a high number, then you say, okay, well, we're going to need to start approaching enterprise level nonprofits if I want to be making that kind of an hourly rate. You're certainly not going to be approaching startups with that number.
We have a question here. How much experience do we need in order to be a consultant? I don't have the sense of the criteria to be a successful consultant. So we actually have a person starting the course next week who has no nonprofit experience. She is still in college and she knows that she's just passionate about serving nonprofits, and she wants to take our course just to figure out how to start from scratch, basically. And she's able to do that because of the program we've got. I mean, you really don't need a lot of experience as long as you know that you want to serve nonprofits and that's where your heart is. I mean, what do you think, Julia?
I think the reason, we don't mean, oh, you have no experience, but nonprofit work, it's a ton of transferable skills. Catalina's background is in international relations, mine's in political science. Kara, I don't know, you probably didn't study nonprofits in college.
Yeah, no, public relations and it's like sports agencies before I came into the nonprofit world.
So once everyone got into it from a different reason, but it's probably not what you went to college to study. That being said, I wrote a ton of very long research reports in college for my political science degree, and my first job as a grant writer went just fine because it was a transferable skill. Kara, you did PR and here you are hosting webinars. So a lot of that stuff transfers. It's not something like med school where you need to have specific certifications and specific biology courses and chemistry courses. So it really is. It is for anyone who wants to get into this work. I think you can find a skill set, especially if you did for-profit work and you work in sales, you could be an MGO. If you've worked in tech, you could be a digital marketing, digital fundraiser. So there's a lot of opportunity to bring your skill set to the sector.
We have a person here. What's the average age of nonprofit consultants?
Oh, I have no idea.
Ooh.
That's a great question. I'm 27. Catalina's 30.
31. We've seen actually a lot of younger people getting into it because they want flexibility with young families, or just flexibility to travel, honestly. But I mean, with that said, we've also come across nonprofits who this is their second career. They're in their 60s. They want to give back to whatever nonprofit is important in their life. And they're just doing it almost for fun, it seems like. So it really does vary, we've found. Yeah, here's Dean 73 and 61.
First client at 61. That's awesome. Yeah. Anytime, anywhere you can do this. And you can do it from home or from Italy.
Yeah,
literally.
That's awesome.
Yeah, Rick 60. Who else do we have?
Potential clients on the IRS search prior to approaching.
Oh, how do we find clients?
Or vet them too, I guess. A little bit of both.
I don't know. We don't search them on the IRS necessarily, but we look at their 990s.
Before we talk to them, because we've wasted a lot of time with, I mean, all the nonprofits need help, right? But we found as we were volunteering a lot of our time, we were just wasting a lot of time on sales calls or info interviews that we're not going to go anywhere because they just didn't have the budget simply. And that's why we actually ended up coming up with some of these lower price toolkits on our site. I got maybe like 20 freebies now on our site to help those smaller nonprofits. We've got the Donor Flow Academy, which is like $500, lifetime access, and you can build a fundraising operation from scratch with that. We've got like a $97 grant writing course we're rolling out. I think tomorrow I'm going to set it up. So we've tried to vary what we've got, but yeah, we use the 990 because we just don't want to waste anyone's time.
I like Tom's question here. How often?
Yeah, that's a good one.
That is great.
I love that.
We've done both, and it's going to be a preference. But I had 2 in the last year where we were an expert and we came in and it was database consulting and they had a certain number of hours a month and they would just schedule us. When they had onboarded a new staff member, they'd bring me in. I would train that person on some area of the database, how to use it, how to build a strategy around their data if they were a major gift officer or whatever. I love jobs like that because I just come in, they ask their questions, I can prepare ahead of time, and then I can leave. We also have staff extension clients, some from the very beginning. They pay well. And it could be good for you. Like they pay well and it could be good. But you feel a little bit more like an employee and they start pulling you in on staff meetings and they want you to present to the board. And these things are all fine. We have 2 that are like this and we have very good relationships with them and they have very, pretty good boundaries with us. So we've kept those 2 clients, but I would not say that we continue to seek those out. But I do know consultants who will get a really good gig like that. And they basically take it as a contract for 6 months and they almost treat it like a full-time job, but there's an out at the end of 6 months. They can move on to something else. So it's going to come down to your preference. There's something for everybody. I don't love contracts where it's like, you got to work 40 hours a month on this, Catalina has one and we love the client, but it does remind us of full-time work. Okay. Any other last questions?
I guess just Michelle had one. So she said just responding to you saying like onboarding people. Like, are you skilled in a number of CRMs? And I guess would that be something to think about whenever
Yeah.
doing this journey?
Yeah. So we when we started out, we wanted to offer CRM services because we felt like that's like a vital part of the development program. But a lot of people just don't really know how to use them that well, and it ends up hurting the development program a lot if they can't get their data out, they don't know how to run reports, or they're not streamlining. We have a lot of trainings on the donor journey. That's something we've really focused in on. Catalina dropped in here our course. But yeah, so we went out in the beginning and we demoed a dozen CRMs, and they mostly work the same way. So I wouldn't say that I'm an expert in all of them, but once I know my way around 2 or 3, I can ferret out what I need to find in the CRM, and they all basically work the same. So so we have partnerships with them too. That's another thing we'll talk to you guys about, setting up different collaborations and partnerships with other kinds of businesses in the sector, because that was a great way to get clients as well, with setting up partnerships with some of those tech companies really early on, and they would refer us clients.
That's great. Well, I think we're now just at the top of the hour. So just to respect everybody's time for today, I think we're going to cut it off. But I know that if your question did not get answered, we can connect you with Julia and Catalina, and you can shoot them a message. And I think they dropped their email a few times in the chat, so feel free to grab that. I just want to say thank y'all so much. Y'all were a great audience and great presenters. I feel like we had some really great topics and questions covered here. I think a lot of people's wheels are turning now what their next step is. So I'm excited to hear. Hopefully we'll hear back from you two, that some people joined the course and we're excited to start their journey into the consulting world.
Yeah, thank you,
guys. Thanks, everybody.
So without further ado, I'll just sign us off for today. And thank you all so much for joining us. And be on the lookout for a follow-up email with the resources mentioned, the recording, and the slides. Thank you all for joining, and we'll see you next time. Take care.
Thanks.
Bye, guys.